This is a quick tutorial on making a bycocket hat. I make these for my website Experts at the Craft Table and I sell them on there, but you might want to make your own. It works out a bit cheaper, it's actually not that difficult, and this is going to show you how to do it. So the things you need are a steam iron, you need a wool hat body. It needs to be pure wool, that's important. If you get one that's made of like a wool mix, then ironing it might make it go shiny and it's just not going to turn out very well. You also need a pair of sharp fabric scissors, or I mean any scissors will do it as long as they'll cut through the wool, and a roll of masking tape is optional, but it really makes it a lot easier to cut the brim to shape. You can just use a piece of chalk. You could. It's basically to. So I'll quickly show you. Once you've turned this up and made a brim, you want to mark it the right width, so it's an even width all the way around. And to do that, you just stick masking tape around it and then cut along the top of the masking tape. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Now the hat body, I get these from a millinery supplier. These are called cones. You can also use the sort of floppy wool hats that you get in women's clothes shops around autumn winter time. I would recommend buying them in the sale at the end of the season. Certainly in Primark in the UK they're about £5 in the sale, and that's less than half of the price of getting these from a millinery supplier. I need to get these all year round, so that's why I buy them from there. But if I was making them just for myself, I'd just hang on until I could get a floppy wool hat in the sale. Just look at the tag, make sure it says 100% wool though, because that's the important thing. What you'll do, if you've got a hat that is like the floppy wool hat sort of thing, they're going to have like, it's going to look more like that. It's going to have it coming out at the bottom. You just get some steam on it, stretch it out and try and make it roughly into this sort of shape. If you fold it in half and get that in the camera, you want it roughly that sort of shape. The floppy wool hats, it's going to come out somewhere down here, but you're going to trim it later, so it's fine. Just get it so that it's that sort of curve on the top of it and a straight line going down there. Now the floppy wool hats, again, it's going to have so it'll go down and then it'll go out. That's also the case with some of the other types of hat bodies you get from the millinery suppliers. So I haven't always used the cones. I also use I forget the name of them, but they look a bit more like the floppy wool hats, but they've got the stiffener in them that this has got. And it's not that easy to, it's not that difficult to fix them up to get them like this. Just a bit of steam, give it a bit of a stretch where the kink is. You'll notice it if you're using one of them. Just pull it tight and it'll go back into a shape like this. Now you want to get your steam iron nice and hot. The cat's clawing at the door behind me. Get your steam iron nice and hot, so that's going to take a little while to warm up. I say a little while, it's not going to take that long at all. Make sure there's water in it as well. That is very important, because no water, no steam. The first thing you want to do is first thing you want to do is get a nice crease down the front of the hat. So there's the iron going off there. Got a little dial on it that goes up for steam. So it says clean on it. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up on camera, but if you pull this all the way over it, it just starts letting out steam once it's fully heated up. So we're going to put a crease down one edge of this. That's for the front of the hat, because if you look at a bycocket hat, it's creased down the front, and then at the back it's turned up and sort of more rounded. So that's our first thing we want to do. You just use the steam. And the great thing about this stuff that's on these hats is when you steam it, it kind of goes a bit stiffer as well. You'll also find that the wool will shrink a little bit when it steams, and that's fine because at the end of the day it's not going to shrink that much if you just give it a quick steam. Once you steam it, just set the crease in with your fingers like that, and it doesn't take long to cool down. If you want to be careful about it, maybe give it a second before you start fiddling with it, because it can get quite hot. In this case it's not, because I didn't steam it for very long. But that gives us, hopefully it shows on the camera, you can see a nice crease down there. Now that's the front of our hat. Now you want to rough out the basic shape of the hat, which is going to be folding it up at the back, and where it gets to the front you don't want too much sticking up at the front. Ideally it should come to a nice point there, like so. Hopefully that's showing up okay. Gonna have to excuse the cat hairs on this as well. I've got 3 cats and 2 dogs, one of which is white. So basic shape kind of looks a bit like that. Now you want to check that it's even as well, so if you fold the hat in half, be careful when you get to the back because you don't want to crease the back too much. But if you fold the hat in half, you can check that it is creased at the same place on both sides. And we're just going to do the front of the hat first. So we'll just put them both down, both sides down like that. Give it a bit of steam just to set the crease in there. And turn it over, bit of steam. Give it a second to cool down. You don't want to touch it as soon as you've steamed it, but it really does cool down quickly. Probably a bit of practice needed there to avoid burning yourself. Just be careful with it. And set the creasing with your fingers, just like you're creasing a bit of paper. And already you can kind of see it taking shape. Now you're not going to have like the perfect width here to begin with. That's something that comes later. As I mentioned with the masking tape, we're going to sort that out. So once we've set the crease right at the front, the next bit that we want to do is the back. Now to do that, we're going to stick it over the end of the ironing board, which means I'm going to need to move my camera a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing. So that goes on here. Now this is where it's shrinking with the steam comes in handy, because it will shrink it to get it nearer the main body of the hat. And use quite a bit of steam here. And when you're holding the hat, be careful that you're not holding it right next to, so if I had my hand this close and then started steaming, it'd burn my hand. So don't do that. I've done that a fair few times and it's really not pleasant. So you can end up with sort of a wavy line here. That's just where it shrinks. You just need to kind of work it and stretch it out and flatten it while it's cooling. I know a lot of tutorials for this, they will suggest using a block. It's like a piece of wood that's shaped like the hat, and you can work it around that. You don't need that at all. You need an ironing board, which is what I've always used for these, and it always works. Once you've done the back, you're basically going to iron there and just kind of work it around and try and work along the crease that you just put in the back. So I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't put like a really hard crease in there. It's just a basic one just to give me a guide as I'm working around this. So I'll be doing that with the iron. It's just going to take me a couple of minutes to do that. try and avoid ironing a crease into it, which I've just done. If you do that though, it's fine. You can just put it on the board and iron the crease out. It's the beauty of ironing. So it's getting a bit hot where I'm doing this, but there we go. So, next step is to really crease it quite hard along here. So we can already see it's kind of looking a bit like a finished bycocket already. Now, where it gets sort of wavy, where it's shrunk a little bit, it shrinks a little bit unevenly, you can just pull it out where the crease goes in, push it in where the crease goes out. It's going to look better once you trim it down. A lot of the shrinkage will be nearer the edges, so what we'll do is we'll trim it and then we'll go over the brim again. So I think I mentioned before, the stiffener in this, it's a shellac stiffener, and when you iron it, it goes stiff, which is great because it keeps the shape of the hat. It's not so great while you're working with it though, because if you don't get it quickly, it's going to set those weird little creases in. But it's fine. We're going to trim that down. Well, I've got a little mark on there from the ironing board, so I'm going to need to quickly steam that. I'm not going to apply any pressure with the steam, I'm just going to apply steam. And what that'll do is relax the fibres of the fabric and take out any marks that are on there. So actually I'm quite glad I did that, because that's a good thing to be able to show you. And once you've finished, you want to give it a bit of steam as well for the shellac, because you want to set the whole thing pretty stiff. So we've already basically got a bycocket here, so it's going more or less straight up at the back. You can sometimes get it right up against there. You don't need it right up against there. It's not necessary, but if you want to, just more steam, shrink it. Again, not applying any pressure, just holding the iron above it and steaming the hell out of it, because that heat and water will make the fabric shrink. Now it's quite hot, so just got to be careful. And because I want it to go around the back like that, I'm going to hold it together right there. The customer that I'm making this for, I did make him one, and I'm not sure what happened to it. It must have got really shaken about in the post, but it was quite badly misshapen when he got it. And I tried to explain what to do to fix it, but he couldn't get the back close like that. So you can see it's right up against it there. Need to work around doing the whole thing like that. But again, just steam, but no pressure on it. You just steam the bit that you want to work on. And I'm just working it with my hands, just trying to pull any creases towards the end where it's going to go off on that point. So you won't see them, because they won't be there. You've got it going at the back. It's right up against it. Got it at the side. It's quite close, but not quite close enough for my liking, so a bit more steam. You can be careful with your hands. Keep them well away from the steam, because it's You know, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, or whatever that is in Fahrenheit for the Americans. You don't want that on your hands, it hurts. There we go, so we've got some steam on there. You see steam's coming off of it. I'm just going to pull it around until it gets to the point where there's nowhere for it to go. It just comes off. And you'll get little bits of fluff coming off, that's fine, that's just loose fibres. Nothing to panic about. And again, you'll see how it's a bit wavy at the top, but then down the bottom it's fairly smooth. We're going to sort that out properly once we've shaped the brim with the tape and trimmed it. So I've got one side done. As you can see, it's pretty close on this side up to the back, and then it goes way out here. So you can see the difference that shrinking it makes. And we're just going to do that going around from the back. And no pressure on it, just steam. Loads of steam. And so apologies for the quality of this video, I know it's not great, but it is. It's about 2 in the morning here, and 1:30 in the morning, just checked. Yeah, there's my iron saying I've been putting the steam out for too long. Shut up. Right. So I might need to give that a minute and then steam that again, but steam shrinks it, shrink it all in, pull it along to the end. So we're pretty close. I do need to get a bit more steam on this bit here, just so you can see it's got a bit of a lump there. So I'm just going to wait for the iron to stop shouting at me. If you do have any questions having tried this, then drop me an email, simon@ectmagic.com. Or if you try it and it works, drop me an image of, drop me some pictures. I'd love to see other people's craft. It's probably going to be long enough for the iron to shut up. Is it going to work? Yeah, there we go, plenty of steam. You kind of have to tip the iron, well this iron certainly, you have to tip it at just the right angle to get the steam. Heat plus water shrinks wool. Who knew? I've got that coming in there. Nicely. Sorry, I'm going off out of frame now. It's getting there. So you'll see it's quite a wide opening there. So people obviously mostly don't have gigantic heads that are going to fill that. Once it's finished making it, you just apply a load of steam to the front and that pulls it in, and then your head's going to pull it out again, but because of the shellac stiffener in it, that will fit your head like a glove, like a hat. So I think we're good to trim that down. Now, I don't recommend trying to do it all in one piece of this stuff, because the shape of the hat is circular and this is straight, and straight things and circular things don't really go together. So at the front end you can use a piece 6 inches long, thereabouts, and that's fine there. But then after that you're going to want to start using shorter pieces, and just kind of hazard a guess when you're trimming it at where the line goes. You can always neaten it up afterwards. This is quite a wide brim for a bycocket, so I've done them with smaller brooms when I was making for myself. But then when I start getting into production line mentality where I want them all to look identical, that's where I got the idea to use the masking tape. Because then it's always going to be the same width, and what you see on the website is what you get. It's a lot easier doing this. The first ones I made, I was using a ruler and marking however far up I was trying to go with a piece of chalk, and marking it here, mark it here, mark it here, and then trying to draw a line connecting them. Nightmare. Don't do that. Just get a bit of masking tape. Packing tape would also work. Try not to get the stuff that's too sticky though, because then you might damage the hat and peeling it off, or it might leave some adhesive on it. You don't want that. Masking tape is great because it goes on and off quite easily. Now, the other thing that is good about using tape is once you're done, you can wrap it around your hand and remove any cat hairs. So that when you send it to a customer who presumably doesn't want your cat hairs all over it, you wrap the tape around your hand and you can pull all the cat hairs off with it. It's great. Right, so that's, yeah, so you can see on this bit they don't perfectly meet up because of the rounded shape. So I'm just, when I cut it, gonna go straight across, trying to get an even line. I'm sure it will make sense when you try it. One of those things that's probably a bit hard to explain, but when you actually see it, it will make sense. And just the last bit down there. So, as you can see, I've gone all the way around the hat. Once it's cut, it is going to have a very squared off edge there, but I'll show you what to do with the masking tape with that, because again, masking tape's brilliant. So you want very sharp fabric scissors. If you're nicking them from your girlfriend, if you're like me and don't know where your fabric scissors are, you're cutting fabric, she can't complain. It's not like when I cut level with her fabric scissors, then she can complain. But she doesn't know I do it, don't tell her. So we're going to get to the bit where it overlaps, so I'm just going to try and cut, I'll be cutting through one of the bits, the bit that's going over the top, and I'm not sure how well it's going to show up on camera, but there's a little, I'm cutting a little bit above the one that is lower, so the higher one is on this side, the lower one is on this side. I've cut through the higher one and left a little gap before joining back up with the edge of the tape. So this is one of those things where you might need to neaten it up afterwards, you might not. You just have to kind of cut it, see how it looks, and then trim it a bit more. So we've got that, that's rubbish. If I could find a use for that, I would love to, I'd love to find a use for that, because I don't like waste. Now, when you peel the tape off, as I said, wrap it around your hand. You're going to want this for later. Wrapping it around so that the sticky side is out. And we're just going to put it to one side in a second. So, sticky side out. Slide that off my hand, put it down over there for now, because that's for removing cat hairs. And just double check you've not got any little bits of tape on there, on the edges. Don't want those, they don't look very nice. Now, first thing to do, get that front flattened. Now, you'll see I'm just going up the not flat bit a little bit with the steam. I'm not putting any pressure there, I'm just putting pressure on the front because I want to get that crease right there set. don't want to put a crease down here. And then when you put it on your head, so you want to hold this until it's cool, because this one really needs to be pulled in at the front, because otherwise it ain't going to fit anyone. Well, I don't know, if you've got a huge head it'll fit you, but if you haven't, then you don't want a huge hat. Just squeeze along the creases while it's cooling. Squeeze along the creases down here. Get all the creases nice and sharp. Lovely. Right, that's nice and cool. So you can see it taking shape already. It's kind of pointy at the front and not at the back. Covered in cat hairs because my cat's been climbing all over my ironing board. And we need to neaten up the brim because we've got some sort of weird shape from the shrinkage going on. So just get some steam in it and try and neaten it a little. I'm just trying to get the top of the brim with the steam. And I've got to here and that's not got any steam on it, so it's quite hard. But that's fine. I'm just going to get the iron over that. It's all going in my face. Good thing that isn't on camera. Yep, just try and use your finger and thumbs, just neaten it out. Get rid of any weird crinkles. So I mean, if you've seen these on my website, you can see the price on them. It's mostly just time consuming. It really isn't difficult to do this yourself. It's just taking the time. Obviously it's probably going to take you a bit longer than it takes me because I've had a lot of practice doing these. But wool's pretty forgiving, and if you do make a mistake you can just iron it out and start again. It's no big deal. Yeah, just anywhere there's a little crinkle, I'm just trying to get it with my finger and thumbs. Flatten it out as best I can. We're going to deal with the squared off corner here in a minute as well. There's a little crinkle there, let's get that. At the end of the day, no one is going to notice one or two little crinkles. If the whole thing's really crinkly, it's going to look weird. But one or two's fine. I mean, if you go in the rain with these, they'll get wet. They're made of wool. It will misshape in the rain. Again, just try and squish that in a bit because I want it to fit. I'm just going to try it on my head. You won't see this because I'm off camera, but yeah, it's probably a little bit big, so got the iron beeping at me again. So just check it on your head. If it's a bit big, you just want to pull it in again. Pull it in a bit further up, because I only pulled it into about here before. This time I'm going to go a bit further. Crease it probably right up to the top of the hat, and then that should pull it in enough, hopefully. Again, it's wool. You can just iron it and iron it and iron it and it will be fine. Just don't leave an iron on it because it will burn. But it's not going to hurt it, just adding a bit more steam, a bit more heat. Probably going to shrink a bit, but that's good. I'm trying to make it fit and it's too big. However, shrink. Please do shrink. You can fold these in half as well. If you're packing for a medieval event, and just fold it right in half, it's going to be like a dish shape. That's fine. You don't do that while you've got steam on it though, because you'll end up with weird crinkles, which I just didn't think about at all. Yeah, once it's set, you can fold it in half. It'll be sort of a dish shape like that, and that's fine. That takes up less space. I wouldn't fold it in half again because you'll get a crease in it. Not that that matters, because you can just iron it out. It's wool. It's great. Love this material. Why are people using man-made fibres? Man-made fibres are rubbish, he says whilst wearing a jumper made of man-made fibres. Let's check that. So yeah, that's getting a bit more fitted. You just got to keep playing with it with a bit more steam each time. I'm actually going to steam it all the way up because I want to try and shrink the top of the hat here. Steam on both sides. There we go. I'm just trying to make it a bit smaller because for some reason this one is a bit bigger than the ones I normally use. That's fine. No stress. You see I've got a few weird crinkles going on here. It's fine, I'm going to get rid of them in a minute. Right now, I'm going to get that crease that runs down the front. That crease. And get that a bit higher up. You can crease it all the way. I mean, some bycockets will have it creased all the way down. Some of them will be more rounded at the back. Honestly, it's just personal preference. I tend to not crease them too hard at the back, because if a customer doesn't want the crease too hard at the back, great. And if they do, you get the idea. You just iron it, put a crease in it. It's easier to put the crease in than it is to take it out. As anyone that's accidentally ironed a crease into something will know. Do people still iron their clothes? I don't actually iron my clothes. Which is odd, because I own an iron and an ironing board. But I tend to wear things that don't need ironing. Also, pro tip, if you wear shirts, hang them up while they're damp and they won't need ironing, because the weight of the shirt pulls it flat. You put them on a clothes hanger to dry. Hang them on the doorway. That's what I did for years when I worked in an office, and nobody ever noticed that my shirts weren't ironed. So, quickly go on to dealing with the squared off corner. What we're going to do is hold the masking tape so that the edges are on the edges of the line there. Actually, we probably want to get a straight line going down that way, because that's a bit wonky. There we go. And then we're going to do the same on this side. Just trimming it to neaten it up, because I've used the raw edge of the hat body, which is going to make that squared off thing more prominent. What we'll do is we'll hold this on here. We actually just want to be holding the brim. Make sure you're not doing this while it's damp and steamy. It's probably not going to show very well on camera, but I've got just a tiny little bit of the brim hanging over, and I'm just going to take some tiny little cuts and just neaten it up. I'm trying to keep myself on camera here. This is not a high quality video, sorry about that, but hopefully you get the idea of what I'm doing here. Sometimes I'm going to pick things up to get them closer to my face. You're just taking off any squared corner bits. Getting it nice and rounded like that. And then do it on the other side as well. So for the initial cut, you're using the masking tape as a guide to get that rounding. And it's not going to be perfect. It never is, but it's fine. Keep trimming. You've got loads to work with. And as I mentioned before, this is quite a wide brim on these. Like, that's deliberate, because I'm doing everything by eye. I'm trimming off just like a fraction of a millimetre there just to round it over, and pulling it in there. Go. So we've got a bycocket hat. That's it made, basically. You can carry on going around getting any little bits that are not perfectly even at the top, but honestly, once you start wearing it, you wear it in the rain, it is going to get shrinkage on random bits because it's made of wool. That's just the nature of wool products. You're going to have to reshape it every now and again. I will probably actually send this out to people that have bought my hats so that they know how to reshape them if they get wet and misshapen, because it's the same process. You're just steaming it. You can also, if you don't have a steam iron, if you're somehow stuck in the dark ages and have an iron that doesn't have a steam setting, you can just get the hat wet and then iron it and make steam. You can hold it over a pot of boiling water. Again, steam. It's the steam that will make it work. So you could actually do this on a medieval encampment. You can just get a pot of water boiling, hold the hat over the top of it. Obviously don't hold your hand over the top of it because you'll burn yourself. You can hold one end and steam the other end. Hopefully this has helped. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever, drop me an email at simon@ectmagic.com. Echo Charlie Tango Magic, all one word, .com, and I will do my best to help you out. Thanks a lot for watching.